Okay guys, so picture this. It's like way back in the 1400s. France is in a total mess. There's this massive war going on, the 100 Years' War. Then, out of nowhere, steps up a teenager. Not a prince, not a seasoned knight, but a teenage girl named Joan. And get this, she says she's on a mission from God. Can you even imagine the guts that took? She wasn't much older than some of us are now, and she completely flipped the script on history. Joan wasn't just any teen. She was about to become a warrior, a leader, and a total legend. Think about your biggest challenges right now. Joan's challenge. Oh, just leading an entire army and trying to save her country. She had her voice, her faith, and this incredible courage that just blows my mind. It's like she had this inner fire, something super powerful driving her. What's super wild is that Joan of Arc achieved so much in such a short life. She was only about 17 when she started her mission and was gone by 19. But Joan was out there changing the course of a war, inspiring thousands of people and standing up for what she believed in, even when things got incredibly scary. Her story isn't just about battles and kings. It's about believing in yourself even when the whole world thinks you're crazy. It's about finding your voice and using it, no matter how young you are. So, buckle up, because we're about to dive into the incredible, almost unbelievable life of Joan of Arc. Prepare to be seriously inspired, because this girl was a total boss. Joan was born in a little village called Domremy in France around 1412. It wasn't a palace or a big city. It was a pretty normal, quiet place. Well, as quiet as it could be with a war raging nearby. Her family were farmers. They weren't rich or famous. Joan grew up helping out around the farm, spinning wool and looking after the animals. She couldn't read or write, which was pretty common back then, especially for girls from villages. So she was just a regular country girl, living a simple life, probably not expecting to ever leave her village, let alone lead an army. Life in Domremy wasn't always peaceful though. The 100 Years' War between France and England was a constant shadow. Imagine living with the threat of enemy soldiers raiding your village. That was Joan's reality. Her village was loyal to the French crown, but it was in an area surrounded by enemies. She saw firsthand the suffering that the war caused. This must have really affected her, seeing her home and her people in danger. Then, when Joan was about 13, something extraordinary started happening. She began to hear voices and see visions. Whoa, right? She said these weren't just any voices. She believed they were messages from God, delivered by saints like St. Michael, St. Catherine, and St. Margaret. At first, she was probably scared and confused. The voices told her to be a good girl and go to church often, but the messages didn't stop there. So Joan finally decided she couldn't ignore the voices anymore. She was about 16 or 17. She knew she had to reach the Dauphin Charles. But how? She was just a peasant girl. First, she went to a local commander, Robert de Baudricourt, in a nearby town. Imagine walking in and saying, "Hi, God sent me to lead the army and save France." Yeah, he laughed her off. Who wouldn't? But Joan was persistent. She didn't give up. She went back again and again. Eventually, Joan's sincerity, and maybe some accurate predictions she made, started to win people over. Baudricourt finally agreed to help her. He gave her a horse and an escort of soldiers for the dangerous journey to Chinon, where Charles was holding court. This journey itself was a massive deal. It was a long way through enemy territory. Joan cut her hair short and dressed in men's clothes for safety. Think about how brave that was. She was stepping way out of her comfort zone, into a world totally unknown to her, all driven by her mission. When Joan finally reached Charles at his castle in Chinon, it was a real test. The Dauphin was understandably skeptical. To test her, some say he disguised himself among his courtiers. But Joan, who had never seen him before, supposedly walked right up to him and identified him. Pretty amazing, huh? She told him about her divine mission to lift the Siege of Orléans and lead him to Reims to be crowned king. Charles was desperate. His situation was pretty bad. He had her questioned by theologians for weeks to make sure she wasn't a witch or a heretic. They found nothing wrong with her. Against all odds, Charles decided to take a chance on this teenage girl. Section 4. Victories and Valor leading the charge. When Joan arrived at Orléans in April 1429, the French soldiers were pretty demoralized. They had been fighting for ages and weren't making much headway. But Joan's arrival was like a shot of pure energy. She wasn't just a figurehead. She rode out with the troops, carrying her banner, encouraging them and planning strategies. She told them God was on their side. Can you imagine the sight? This young woman, barely an adult, in shining armor, full of passion and conviction, leading grizzled soldiers into battle. Her impact was almost immediate. Within days of her arrival, the French, inspired by Joan's courage and leadership, launched a series of attacks against the English strongholds around Orléans. She wasn't afraid to get into the thick of it. In one battle, she was wounded by an arrow in the shoulder. Ouch! But did she retreat? Nope. She pulled the arrow out herself, had the wound dressed, and then returned to the fight to rally her troops. That kind of bravery is just legendary. It showed the soldiers that she was willing to share their dangers, and it boosted their morale like crazy. And guess what? It worked. Against all expectations, the French, under Joan's spiritual leadership and with her tactical input, broke the Siege of Orléans in just 9 days. 9 days! The English were stunned. The French were ecstatic. It was a massive victory, a huge turning point in the 100 Years' War. Joan became known as the Maid of Orléans. She had done what seasoned commanders couldn't. Section 5. Betrayal and Bravery. The Trial of a Warrior. Even with all her amazing victories, Joan's story wasn't all triumph. After Charles was crowned King Charles VII in Reims, a major goal of her mission achieved, things started to get complicated. Some of the king's advisors were jealous of her influence and maybe a bit scared of her power. Politics, right? It always gets messy. Joan wanted to continue the fight and drive the English completely out of Paris and the rest of France. But the king started to favour diplomacy and truces, which slowed things down. Then, in May 1430, during a skirmish outside the town of Compiègne, Joan was captured. She was trying to defend the town from Burgundian forces, who were allies of the English. It's said that the town gates were closed, while she and her rearguard were still outside, effectively trapping them. Whether it was a mistake or a deliberate act of betrayal by some is still debated by historians. Joan was sold to the English by the Burgundians. The English really wanted to discredit her and, by extension, King Charles VII, whose coronation she had made possible. They put her on trial for heresy, basically for going against the teachings of the church and witchcraft. The trial, held in Rouen, was a total sham. It was politically motivated from the start. Her accusers were pro-English clergy, led by Bishop Pierre Cochon. They twisted her words, asked her trick questions and tried to trap her. They questioned her about her visions, her male clothing, and her belief that she was directly responsible to God. Section 6. A legacy forged in fire. St. Joan, forever an icon. Despite her brave defense, the outcome of Joan's trial was pretty much decided from the start. Her accusers were determined to find her guilty. In May 1431, after months of questioning and imprisonment in terrible conditions, Joan was convicted of heresy. They particularly focused on her wearing men's clothes, which was against church law at the time, and her claim of direct divine guidance. For a brief moment, under extreme pressure and perhaps fear of being burned at the stake, she signed a document recanting her claims. But she quickly took it back, reaffirming her faith in her visions and choosing to wear men's clothes again, an act of defiance. This sealed her fate. On May 30th, 1431, Joan of Arc, the teenage girl who had led an army and inspired a nation, was burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen. She was only about 19 years old. Accounts say she faced her death with incredible bravery, asking for a cross to be held before her and calling on the name of Jesus. It's a truly tragic and horrifying end for someone so young and so extraordinary. Her ashes were gathered and thrown into the Seine River, so there would be no grave, no relics for people to venerate. Her enemies wanted to erase her memory, but they failed. Joan's story didn't end with her death. Her actions had already changed the course of the 100 Years' War, boosting French morale and paving the way for eventual French victory. About 25 years after her execution, after the war had ended and Rouen was back in French hands, King Charles VII ordered a new trial. This nullification trial investigated the original proceedings and, surprise, surprise, declared her innocent. Her conviction was overturned, and she was officially declared a martyr. And her legacy just kept growing. And now let's test your knowledge about Joan of Arc with a quick quiz. Here are 5 multiple-choice questions based on the video. Question 1. What was Joan of Arc's age when she started her mission? A. 16, B. 17, C. 18, D. 19. The correct answer is B. 17. Joan began her mission at the age of 17, driven by her visions and strong faith. Question 2. Where was Joan of Arc born? A. Paris, B. Domremy, C. Orleans, D. Reims. The correct answer is B. Domremy. Joan was born in the small village of Domremy in northeastern France. Question 3. Who did Joan of Arc convince to support her cause? A. The Pope, B. The King of England, C. The King of France, D. The Duke of Burgundy. The correct answer is C. The King of France. Joan convinced Charles VII to support her, leading to her pivotal role in the 100 Years' War. Question 4. What was Joan of Arc's role in the Battle of Orléans? A. Strategist, B. Archer, C. Standard-bearer, D. Foot soldier. The correct answer is C. Standard-bearer. Joan led the French troops as a standard-bearer, inspiring them to victory. Question 5. How did Joan of Arc die? A. In battle, B. Natural causes, C. Execution by burning, D. Assassination. The correct answer is C. Execution by burning. Joan was captured and executed by burning at the stake in 1431. How did you do? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more fascinating historical stories.